Toyota's made some interesting changes to the Supra for 2021, and while it may look pretty much exactly identical to a 2020 model, of course, barring the now red brake calipers that say Supra on them, under the skin is a slightly different story. So let's go for a drive and talk about it. Hello there. Now, one thing you're gonna notice right away about this revised 2021 Supra is when we start it up. Well, that's a very satisfying sound, though slightly less satisfying than a 2020 model. Curiously, Toyota has mellowed out the exhaust on this revised Supra, making for an overall quieter experience. I'm really curious what feedback loop Toyota was in to think that we needed to tame the exhaust note on this 2021 Supra, because I recall driving this car at the launch event back in 2019 and almost unanimously everyone said, wow, what a great sounding car. Oh well, but here we are for 2021, quieter exhaust. It's still a nice noise, you know, it's a BMW straight six, the B58 engine. It's never really going to make a bad sound, but it is much more muffled than the 2020 model. Speaking of that engine, we need to talk about it because that is the headline figure as far as most enthusiasts are concerned. Power jumps from a claimed 335 horsepower in the 2020 model to 382 horsepower in this 2021 model. Torque is more or less the same at 368 pound-foot. Either way, substantial boost in power and substantial power figures in general for a vehicle of this size. So this new B58, what's up with it? Well, the head is different, but the big thing is the block. Interestingly, they've lowered the compression from 11 to 1 to 10.2 to 1, and BMW at least claims that by lowering the compression they can throw more boost to this car, which Turbocharging 101 says that is generally true. By lowering the compression you can run more boost without detonation. But Turbocharging 101 also says that a lower compression engine is going to have more turbo lag than a higher compression engine. And that is absolutely the case here. While the peak power figure is up, the power delivery of this new B58 is definitely lazier in the low RPMs compared to the 2020 model. And if you just drive this thing around town and at low speeds, you'll think this is a downgrade. It really does kind of just feel slower and lazier around town, which is disappointing. Of course, once you get over, say, 3,000 RPM, this engine tends to wake up quite a bit. But you could be completely forgiven for hopping into this and thinking, like I did, is it all right? Is it broken? Because I recall the 2020 model just having torque everywhere all the time, full attack mode. This revised calibration just doesn't have that same low speed sharpness. Unchanged is the 8-speed automatic transmission. It is a ZF8 with the BMW's calibration on it. I've said this before and I'll say it again, it is one of the best automatic transmissions in the industry. Do I wish there was a manual here? Yes. I said it was a 2020, I'll say it here again. I wish there was a 6-speed stick here. The Supra is not so lightning fast that you need an automatic transmission. A 6-speed stick would be a lot of fun in this car. But Toyota is working with the hardware that they were able to afford from BMW, so this is what we get. Also revised is the suspension. Now, I recall driving the 2020 Supra on the road and spent quite a lot of time with it on the racetrack, and I thought, wow, this thing is razor sharp, has this great propensity for oversteer, and was very, very exciting to drive, but it could be a little bit snappy. And of course, not everyone out there is a drifter and a track day bro like me, so that can be a bit scary for folks. So Toyota claims to kind of revise the suspension on this car. It's still adjustable. If you put it in sport mode, you can configure the dampers between normal and sport. But the big thing they're claiming is that the rear shock calibration has really been kind of revised to kind of make it less harsh. Because the impression I got is that basically this thing would hit the bump stops in the rear suspension and then go to infinite spring rate and bounce you off the road. very exciting, but a little bit edgy, a little bit dicey. Has the revised suspension really worked? Well, the personality is still similar. This is still a very firm, veering on harsh over bumps ride. It is definitely not a super GT comfy ride, but it is livable every day. And it does seem to have reduced that slight propensity towards hitting the bumps, bottoming up the rear suspension, hopscotching around the pavement. See, like that? It handled that broken pavement mid-corner much more nicely. But I suppose that's where Toyota is kind of losing me, because they've tried to sort of soften up the suspension for more people more of the time, but it hasn't necessarily worked. This is still a very firm car. You can see it getting jostled around quite a bit. Ugh, like that. And it's true, when you hit big like dips in the freeway or expansion joints, it does still become a very harsh ride. I've been hopped out of my seat quite a lot. So the end result there is sort of a mixed bag. And the powertrain's kind of a mixed bag too. It's not as razor sharp as the 2020 model, but does produce more peak power, but with the more mellowed exhaust. I'm getting mixed messages here. Oh God, what are you trying to do with this car? Do you want it to be a GT? Do you want it to be a razor sharp track toy you can drive to work? What is sort of the messaging I'm supposed to get from behind the wheel? Because I'm not quite getting either. You know, when I drove the 2020, I thought, okay, this is basically a really fun track toy you can drive to work and have fun with. But with this, that message is kind of muffled. It kind of feels like Toyota took feedback from every single person they asked and tried to apply all of it at once, and they've kind of lost the message along the way. And then there are just Supra-isms, things that have not changed from the 2020 model. After all, it's only been 1 year. And day to day, that means, wow, the wind buffeting issue. If you roll the windows down in the Supra, you're going to go over 40 miles an hour. The wind buffeting in the cabin is truly insufferable. It feels like your head is going to explode. Now, Supra apologists will say, well, but the aftermarket has these stick-on things for $100, but da-da-da-da-da. I don't care. If you buy a brand new $56,000 sports car and you have to immediately modify it to be able to roll the windows down while you're driving, that's a mistake. Toyota should have fixed that right away. They were immediately made aware. The feedback loop from us when we first drove the car was immediate. Please fix that. It is terrible. They did not. I have no idea why. Just change the mirror caps. Give me something as simple as that to disrupt the airflow over the windows so it doesn't make my head want to pop clean off. And then there's the fact that because this is all BMW under the skin, everything in here is BMW. The only thing in this entire interior I could discern is a Toyota product is the steering wheel rim, though all the buttons are BMW, and the JBL speaker grills here. Everything else is BMW. And that's not a bad thing. BMW interiors have come a long way and feel quite nice, and iDrive is pretty good, and the caliber of the materials feels fine in this segment, but it just doesn't really feel special to me. And having that distance in time between driving the 2020 model and driving this, I kind of forgot just how BMW everything is. And when you back off and you aren't driving the Supra enthusiastically, you could be completely forgiven for thinking, oh, I'm driving a 4 Series. Because that's what this experience imparts upon you, but it doesn't have any of the practicality of a 4 Series because there's no storage or anything anywhere in here. And so I think that goes back to the theme of Toyota, what do you want the Supra to be? Because in this partnership with BMW, there are compromises. There are compromises in these sorts of partnerships, but what compromises are necessary and what compromises did you just accept because you didn't want to put the money in the R&D to build your own sports car from scratch? And that is something I've been wrestling with the whole week behind the wheel I've had with Supra, because I haven't really bonded with this car. And it's funny, if you look at the channel, I recently just reviewed a 2021 Prius, and I feel like that is somehow more charming than this because it feels more distinctly Toyota. It feels like the sort of Toyota principles and personality are there more in a Prius than they are in the Supra, and that is weird. It really shouldn't be like that. You know, the 8.6, the smaller sports car, is co-developed with Subaru, but it still has a distinctly Toyota personality about it. This doesn't. This just feels like I'm driving a BMW with a Toyota badge on it, and that's very disappointing. Now, I know that higher performing versions of the Supra are coming, but I just hope they have more Toyota personality in them. Just because it's like, if I want to drive a BMW every day, why don't I just buy a BMW? Thinking back to my week with the Supra, I was trying to think of like, what was my favorite part about this car? What did I enjoy the most? And the answer is actually just parking it, getting out, and looking at it. And sure, visually, Supra is a complete triumph, but if the best part of the experience of owning a sports car is just looking at it and not driving it, that's not a good thing. It should be, I got behind the wheel and I was so excited to drive it, and it was very exciting, it was this and it was that, but I haven't really got that from the Supra in this week behind the wheel. And it's honestly a bummer that I'm saying all this about the Supra, because I was so excited to have a week behind the wheel with this thing, so I had such fond memories of the 2020 model that despite its flaws, you know, it was a good sports car. But with this 2021 model, Toyota's kind of rounded off the edges. I'm not necessarily sure that's a good thing. The 2021 Supra is very different from the 2020 model. Is it better? I'm not sure about that, but it certainly is different. Maybe for 2022 they can revise it again and throw some more personality into it and fix the wind buffeting, and then maybe I'll be more enthused. But until then, if you have almost $60,000 to spend on a sports car, why would you not buy something like a Mustang GT350 or a Camaro SS1LE and pocket the extra bank, or shoot, even bridge the gap and just go buy a C8 Corvette, because that is way better as a sports car experience than this thing is. I don't know, guys. I think that's all I got for this one. I think I'm going to pull over here and just get out of the Supra and enjoy looking at it, because that does seem to be the best part. In any case, my name is Jake. You've been watching Drive, Brake, Fix, Repeat, and I'll see you guys next time where I go do more fun things with cars.